How often do you come across a game that's genuinely fun and gratifying to play right out of the gate? A lot of games, especially in the 3D era, will have extended cutscenes, tutorials, and all sorts of other things at the beginning, padding out gameplay before you really get to do anything. There are lots of titles, from as far back as the PS1 and the Nintendo 64 up to more recent titles, that will use big budget animation and extended cinematics to really play out the cutscene angle and really pad out a lot of your initial playtime, while also easing you into the game and into the lore and things like that. The Simpsons Hit and Run, being a licensed title especially, is going to throw a lot of cutscenes at you, and a lot of cinematics showcasing its characters and a lot of the show's traditional humor. But even before you start an actual save file, just loading into the game itself, everything from the developers, the 20th Century Fox, the Fox Interactive logo and all that, up to the intro cutscene and everything else can be skipped. The tutorials are handled via a series of windows with Bart telling you what to do, but right then and there it gives you the option to turn off those types of tutorials. That way you're able to just run around and figure the game out yourself, or if you already know, if you're replaying the game, or if you just want to figure it out, you can run around just getting into shenanigans right from the start. The game is a pretty standard arcade racer. It plays less like a Need for Speed, Gran Turismo sort of game, something that you could almost call a simulator, and it plays something more akin to your traditional cruisin' USA type of game with much better demolition mechanics. The Simpsons, as they will remind you while you're playing this game,
need some road rage,
had another title around the same time called The Simpsons Road Rage, which was another car-based title, and it was effectively a Crazy Taxi ripoff. Whereas The Simpsons Hit and Run was more of a Grand Theft Auto ripoff, is what it's always been called. Grand Theft Auto for kids, you might have heard it called. Anyway, it's pretty reasonable that they would have actually pretty good driving mechanics for these games, considering that they were working on multiple games. They probably had some kind of engine that worked concurrently between the two of them, so they were able to really capitalize on that with multiple titles. All Hit and Run did was take the, I'm assuming, pre-existing models, added a little bit of overworld exploration and platforming, and boom, they called it a GTA clone. Hit and Run starts off with Homer, and it lets you run around doing whatever you want, kicking people, getting into vehicles, getting into all kinds of nonsense. And you're not able to straight up assault people and steal their vehicles the same way you're able to do in a Grand Theft Auto game, but you can still effectively use any vehicle in the game. You just ride shotgun with whatever stranger is driving around. Some specific vehicles, for that matter, can only be driven by their specific driver. Say for instance you're running around as Marge and you decide you want to use Lisa's Malibu Stacy car, the car will spawn with Lisa still driving the vehicle and Marge will just be riding shotgun. The same is true for Snake's vehicle, Grandpa's car, and a few other ones. Each vehicle has its own unique stats, and as you progress through the game you'll unlock more and more vehicles with higher stat ratings overall. Most of these vehicles are simply purchasable using the coins that you pick up while you're running around or that you get by breaking through crusty glass, with a lot of them even being mandatory to complete some of the missions throughout the various stages. But some of them, including a lot of the better ones that you might actually want, are unlockable only through specific bonus missions or through circuit races or whatever other means. There are actually quite a lot of these missions throughout the entire game, and a lot of them are highly unique in their way and will have a wide variety of objectives, setting them aside from one another. But at the end of the day, this is primarily a vehicle-based driving game. So any variety this game may provide, both in its main missions as well as its bonus missions, will all revolve around your vehicles, driving, racing, chasing in some capacity, or very occasionally, missions will also include some degree of on-foot exploration or platforming. The very first mission of the game, for example, sees you on foot for as much as it takes you to get in and out of your vehicle and then get in and out of the Quickie Mart while you're just picking up some fucking ice cream or whatever the first mission is. Really just making sure that you know how to get into a car and follow the objective. But if you're willing to go out of your way and do a little more than just that and explore, you'll find that you can actually navigate to the top of the Quickie Mart and you'll find a lot of goodies, such as the collectible coins that you'll need to purchase vehicles and costumes throughout the game, as well as one of the many collectible cards scattered throughout the game if you're into 100%ing and collecting everything that the game has to offer. The flow of gameplay doesn't really get any more in-depth than this. That is, driving around, talking to whatever NPC, triggering a cutscene, and then so on and so forth. But as mentioned before, the game will give you a wide array of missions, all revolving around this structure. Races are the most common mission type by far in this game, but if nothing else, they do at least also add a wide variety of race types to keep it from being completely stale, at least for a while. You know, before the game turns completely to shit and you're doing like the same mission 4 times in a row. The rest of level 1 basically just serves as a playground. It's an easy, very low consequence level to run around and explore and try to gather coins in. You can try your hand at all the different bonus missions, and if you want to just stick to the main missions, the first level will actually do a very good job of giving you a little taste of pretty much every mission type that it has to offer. From its pickup style missions, to its demolition style missions, to the various races that we talked about, you'll get to see just a little bit of everything with Homer, including some indoor platforming exploration, which these types of missions definitely help flesh out the world, and it lets you see how lively it can be, how functional it can be to explore. But like I said, it'll be very rare that a mission actually needs you to do any of this. The first level ends with a more difficult race against Smithers, giving you a little taste of what's to come and acting as a bit of a check to make sure that you're good enough to get to the next level. The level ends with us finding out that, of course, all of this suspicious activity is linked to Mr. Burns, but other than that, there's no real established story or continuity. The closest thing we get is Bart unable to find a copy of a new video game that just came out, mainly because we kept that very video game from hitting the store's shelves in a previous mission. Other than that, it's basically the same isolated nonsense from level 1, only this time around the game fully expects you to know what you're doing. We get a few notable locations we didn't see in the first level, such as the DMV and Moe's Tavern, but more importantly, this level gives us a lot more verticality and a lot more ramps to play around with. This of course also means that there's a greater risk of us falling and glitching out of the stage. The whole level revolves entirely around Bart just trying to get a copy of this new video game, right up until the last few missions, where instead you're trying to help Dr. Frank build this giant truck dinosaur called Truckosaurus. And that's actually another big part of the reason why you can't find a copy of this video game, is because this motherfucker's hoarding them all to literally fucking bootleg the violence out of them.
I need the power of video game violence to run my latest invention.
Once you get all the parts you need for this robot, you get a cutscene showing it off, and that's just about all you get out of it. That's how the whole segment ends, and then at the end of the cutscene, Bart gets abducted by a mysterious green light, presumably aliens, which just kind of comes out of left field. I mean, at least as far as the first 2 levels are concerned, they didn't do anything regarding aliens up until now. The third level similarly has not really anything to do at all with the aliens, but we do find Bart at the end of it.
Bart, I found you!
And he's clearly loopy, he's clearly out of his shit, which does support the whole alien abduction thing, and plays right into the next level. Which, as we go into the next level, you actually get a little cutaway scene with a newspaper as the stage is loading, and you see an article in the corner where Bart was apparently found in the middle of some crop circle somewhere near Cletus's property, or on Cletus's property, I guess. So Marge keeps investigating that. She finds out that the cola's got to do with it because Grandpa tells her that the symbol from the crop circle was on the Buzz Cola soda, which she runs to tell Apu about it, which that leads into Apu's stage, which basically is him just dealing with the fact that he's been selling this stuff and looking into where it's coming from, looking for the source of it. You find that it's in some alien meteor, and they're using it to bring another dinosaur to life, which what the fuck is the thing with this game and dinosaurs? And all that ultimately just leads to a deeper conspiracy with the aliens putting all the Earthlings in a reality show, and they're about to give them guns so that they can all shoot each other and shit'll just go crazy. So Bart's level is all about stopping that. Which, yes, we are playing as Bart again. Apu was the last original character in this game. And as you might have noticed by the footage, we've also been replaying levels for the last couple of characters as well. But from this point on, nothing is original. Every stage and every character is just a different variation of what you've seen already. Bart and Homer will both get new vehicles that they didn't have before, which will be necessary for the new, more difficult races and other missions that you'll be doing in these updated levels. The levels are different. They take place during different times of the day, night modes, and there are some additional hazards. There's some really annoying rings that are added to the ramp in the pier whenever you're playing through it as Bart, as well as this fucking hammer arm wedge thing that'll squeeze you and send you halfway across the map. Seriously, I hated that thing. It was part of what made playing through Bart so terrible when I was doing the whole gameplay thing with it. Once we have foiled the aliens' plans to give all the humans guns so we can shoot each other, we find out that they had a bigger scheme all along to just do a whole ass zombie apocalypse, which is what the next level is. The final level, that is, with Homer once again. We're back on Evergreen Terrace, and this time we have as little to explore as ever. The first version of the stage was basically the same as the second, only you didn't have access to Mr. Burns' property. And aside from the time of day, that's one of the things that makes Marge's level distinct. The gates to Mr. Burns' home are open, which means you can drive through the home and get an alternate shortcut into the power plant. On this final level, with the aliens all around and shit, the cemetery's been torn up, obviously, because the zombies are out, which means you have a giant gorge, a new hazard for you to speed run over. You get a lot of zombie and alien imagery. And as far as dialogue is concerned, while up until now you've gotten a lot of fleshed out characters, the cast that you know and love from The Simpsons, you now have the bare bones characters that you need for what minimal dialogue is necessary to flesh out the remainder of the story, and then everything else, everything non-essential, whether it's main mission, bonus mission, or whatever, it is carried out by zombies just going or saying no over and over again. Which, if you ask me, is blatant proof that even the voice cast had gotten tired of working on this fucking game. So they just did the last level as a zombie apocalypse so that they wouldn't have to actually do any voice acting. The story ends with Homer blowing up the UFO, saving the day, and then you go into the end credits. And that's about the end of it. You get your end credits, the aliens go to Earth Heaven, they're forced to watch the credits alongside you, and there's nothing more to the story. You can always revisit previous levels with your new vehicles and costumes in order to get better times or just have an easier time of getting all the collectibles and unlockables. There is quite an abundance of missions if you want to 100% the game, so it'll give you content if you want it, but it's so repetitive, it gets so stale, and it gets so fucking annoying by the end of it. Even if you just want to do the main story, some of these missions get so repetitive in what they are, and they rely so much more often than not on overly aggressive AI. No, really, like this fucking Principal Skinner mission. There's this mission that you do with Bart on the second go-around, where you gotta show Skinner proof of these guns so that he can help you, but he's just like, no, fuck you, you're bringing a gun to school, we can't let you do all that. So, you do another like fucking chase mission, you gotta destroy his car, and he was trying to go for this really predictable route through a shortcut behind the billboard over here on the Krusty Studio, so I rerouted him hard as fuck through this shortcut, which he eventually breaks through and gets through the glass and everything, hits the highway to the observatory, which is where he would normally go, but the AI is so stubborn, it's so aggressive that instead of just going down its path, it fucking reroutes itself all the way back to the beginning just so that it can force itself into that initial shortcut, and the dumb piece of shit ends up getting stuck in between a wall and the billboard that it's trying to get a shortcut between, and it ends up just blowing itself up trying to back in and out of it. Like, seriously, it literally kills itself trying to fucking be overly stubborn and overly aggressive. And it isn't just critical NPCs during missions or anything like that either. Random-ass NPCs on the highway will just drive on the wrong lane to get in your way or push you into a wall, fuck up your time, whatever they can do. And the more you get knocked around into pedestrians and other shit, the more your hit and run meter fills up. Which we have neglected to mention the hit and run meter up until now. Like I said, you can raise all kinds of hell. There's all sorts of destructible objects in the game, and you can just get out of your car and straight up start kicking people, but it's not without consequence. As you do these things, your meter will continue to fill, eventually triggering a hit and run for which the game is named. The cops will be after you for as long as the meter runs, and in the event that you happen to be busted, you will have to pay some coins. Which, if you're like me and you don't go out of your way to get too many coins, that actually does suck quite a bit. Because when you consider all the mandatory costumes and vehicles that you have to purchase throughout the story, having to go more out of your way to enable those things just sucks. And this all, of course, peaks at the end of the game. The repetition gets bad enough to the point where we're doing the literal same mission 4 times in a row, delivering that nuclear waste to the UFO to blow that shit up. but the aggression and the hit and run meter and all that is at its worst as well. Not only will your hit and run meter fill up faster than any other level on this final one, but the zombie cops are fast as hell. They'll just plow through traffic to get right to you, and they're super tough, super durable vehicles. And when you put all that together with a tight timer for all these missions, forcing you to speed and weave through everything, inevitably hitting 1 or 2 zombies, which apparently hitting already dead people is a fucking crime, it just ends up being a lot to deal with. And going back to the whole AI being needlessly aggressive thing, at the very last mission, the very last phase of the very last mission, right before you do the final race to the playground to blow up the UFO and trigger the end credits finally, right when you get to your house, there's a black sedan waiting for you to trigger a chase scene. But again, this AI is programmed so aggressively. I guess they assumed so adamantly that you would plow through the crusty glass through that ramp on your way to the playground that they try to brute force it preemptively, to the point where if you watch the gameplay series, you'll see me just fucking sit there and wait for the guy to just lap around the house by himself, and then I just go when there's a clear path and the mission basically does itself, because he was so set, I guess, on getting the jump on you with that ramp that they just gun it preemptively and they have to loop back around like Skinner did on that other mission, and that gives you a fucking clear path to just fucking plow through to the playground. So to be fair, I guess it's really not that bad, but that's only when you know the cheap little tricks that it's gonna do. That's only once you understand how it starts to spawn traffic, once you understand how the AI aggression works, once you understand that the timers aren't always honest to put on a little bit more pressure or make the mission seem a little bit more organic. If there was a little more you could do on foot, if that was a little more rewarding, if you could explore a little more of Springfield on foot and got rewarded more for it. Hell, even if there was like some combat-oriented missions, at no point throughout the game are you ever tasked with fucking up these robots or doing anything. That's all completely optional as well. It just feels stale, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people didn't even finish the game, just picked it up and played around with it. Which that was ultimately another thing for this game, was it to just be a fun kind of sandbox-style game to play around with. But for the sake of gameplay, for the sake of completion, for the sake of actually feeling like you played through the game and did something with it, it's a really annoying experience, and I wouldn't recommend playing it all the way through. It's a fun game to play, it's not worth beating. Ralph.